Welcome to NFL on NBC YouTube channel, the Rotoworld Football Show. My name is Pat Kerrane. I'm joined by Kyle Dvorchak. Kyle, how's it going?
It's going well. I mean, I feel like we got an interesting slate with just like one good quarterback. They play with the same good tight end, and then no Lamar. I guess maybe we'll get Josh Allen. That's like a difficult situation to parse. He's supposed to return to practice today, but in what capacity is he playing? So it's maybe that makes it almost a news heavy slate, but it's a weird one. I'd call it weird.
It does feel like a weird slate. And if you guys aren't familiar, the way this show goes is that we are going to be talking DFS, going through the slate, but we are also going to be answering your start sit questions this week. So go ahead and fire those into the chat now. And in about 15, 20 minutes, we'll start answering those. Answer those for about 15 minutes. Go back, finish up the DFS discussion, and then we will close out with another Q&A session. Today, I actually have to take off, so Kyle's going to handle the last Q&A session solo, but we will try to wrap up as much of your questions as we can in those two sessions. But yeah, let's talk about this slate here. I think that one interesting thing about the slate is that we do again have one of these massive shootout games. A couple weeks ago there was the really popular Lions and Dolphins game that drew a lot of ownership on the slate. In this week we have this Chiefs Jaguars game that had highest total of the week. I think very much deserves to have that total. But Kyle, what are your thoughts on how people are going to approach that in DFS?
Yeah, I got to imagine it's the most popular game by a pretty considerable margin. And I guess you could say we've gotten some clarity with at least the Chiefs wide receivers in that Juju has actually stepped up to become a reasonable thing. And in his wake, we've almost completely lost MVS. He's still out there, but he just is not doing that much. Maybe the one complication is that we now have Kadarius Toney in the mix. We didn't see him much last week. It was
yeah. He ran out on 8% of dropbacks last week.
I mean, at some point you have to imagine he is in the mix, but I mean, you couldn't call him in the mix. He's in the mix as much as Justin Watson has been in the mix. Maybe even less, honestly. Yeah. So at some point, I assume he will be in the mix. I don't think he's not playable today. He's not playable this weekend though. But would it shock me if he jumps to a 40% snap share and does steal away a touchdown? It wouldn't shock me, no, because at some point that will probably happen. He's obviously extremely talented. It's just how long is the ramp-up period? And it's so difficult to say. We saw, a few weeks ago, Pat was like, just get McCaffrey in there and get him the ball. How could his usage was terrible? What's going on? And then the next week we see exactly get him in there and get him the ball. And then with TJ Hawkinson, I was shocked. He played 91% of the snaps last week. We'll talk about him later. But I mean, he had probably 5 days to learn the entire playbook. Apparently he learned the entire playbook in 5 days, targeted 9 times, caught all of them. So it's just so difficult to tell with these situations, which players are getting ramped up slowly and which players immediately make an impact. I don't think you can play him this week, but I
have to say, of all the players who did not make an immediate impact, and keep in mind, Toney had a bye week. He was traded right during a bye week. So he had almost an extra week compared to a guy like Hawkinson. Given the track record he's had, not just in the NFL, but at Florida as well, very inconsistent playing time. I'm not shocked that he has not mastered the playbook as of yet. So, I think this game, I wonder if MVS is maybe back in play, though, because Mecole Hardman back-to-back DNPs with an abdomen issue. I don't know if he's going to be practicing today. We'll probably know that pretty soon. But if he is not able to go, I don't think we'll get you're not trusting Watson or Moore or Toney, I don't think. But and the MVS's snaps were down last week. And I think, that it was so crowded last week with essentially 3 wide receiver threes that are trying to work in, that if Hardman isn't able to go, then maybe MVS is back to a full-time role. And his volume on a per route basis is pretty even with Juju's, actually. So as long as he's out there running the routes, if he's going to be a lot more contrarian, it's a little interesting to me.
Yeah, I actually I like that a lot because we saw early in the year, up until about 3 weeks ago, he and Juju were dead even on targets, target share, target per route run. They both played every snap. They both saw a decent amount of the targets. And both of them were doing nothing with it. And we saw Juju break out from that. And I think it's perfectly reasonable, at least in a 1-game sample, to think if MVS is in that role, like, I'm not sure Juju is doing anything truly special. Actually, I'm pretty sure he's not. I'm pretty sure he's a good enough player on the field with Patrick Mahomes. You can probably say that of MVS too. He just needs to be on the field more, which this Mecole thing could give him the opportunity to do again. So I actually would love that, because I think the like super obvious stack is just going to be Mahomes, Juju, and either Kirk or even just Travis Etienne. So getting away from that, if you are choosing to play this game as a stack, feels like it's a must.
Yeah. And then thoughts on, bringbacks for this game. I mean, you mentioned Kirk and Etienne. Part of me just wants to go Etienne and not even bother with like a wide receiver bringbacks. But if you are going that way, you have to think through Evan Ingram, who was hurt last week, but we were excited to play actually a little bit. At least the real sickos amongst us were. And I would also say Zay Jones is maybe in the mix this week. He's running a lot of routes. We should see elevated passing attempts for the Jaguars. So I think there's like, if Kirk ends up being really chalky, I think I'm okay going away from that. There's probably some other ways to play this.
Yeah, me too. I think I'd even consider going away to it for either of Zay Jones or even Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones leads the team in air yard share since week 5. He leads the team in total air yards too, and he missed a game in that span. So they're still using him as a deep threat, and he's not terrible. He's not dust. I don't think he's great, but as a third receiver for a team that's playing in a shootout, like, he has a chance to get open, and so does Zay. And they've all been, not only them, but also Evan Ingram, have all been grouped within 2% target share of each other in the past 5 weeks. They just are not utilizing one guy over the others. Early in the year, it seemed like Christian Kirk had a lead. And I think over the long term, given his contract, his pedigree, he is probably their best receiver. But over the past 5 weeks, we just haven't seen a gap between them. So I'm totally willing to go, quote, off the board. You'll still get some ownership, especially on Zay. Probably not on Marvin. I do think Marvin would be such a sneaky play. And his air yards are like the perfect way to speed up this game. That's the one thing I don't love about using the running back as a run back. Maybe Etienne's kind of a mold breaker because he can, in a game, average 8 yards a carry. Yeah, he can be the game speed up guy. But you do want really either a guy who maybe the thesis for like someone like Cooper Kupp is that he's the entire offense. So it doesn't matter if he's breaking long plays. If the game is back and forth, it's the opposing team, Kupp, the opposing team. Or on the other hand, for a team like, Zay Jones, it could be someone like, or Marvin Jones, excuse me, where it's tons of Mahomes and then immediately a long play to Marvin Jones. You don't need a lot of plays because he speeds the game up. So I actually do like him, I think, just in terms of ownership, straight up over Kirk.
Yeah, and Zay, if he does get popular, I kind of like your Marvin Jones idea as a direct pivot off of Zay Jones a lot. He's getting a lot of his targets on screens, kind of more shallow stuff, kind of playing more of a possession receiver role. So I think, Marvin Jones, just the way the game, playing out, and you kind of need, like, I could even see going like Etienne and Marvin Jones, because Jones is quite cheap. I think that's possible. So definitely a game that I do want to have some pieces of, but figuring out ways to play a contrarian, given that the Jaguars and the Chiefs are spread out offenses, I think is probably the way to go. What else jumps out to you this week? I mean, I really like this. I think the Dolphins and the Browns game is somewhat interesting. It doesn't look like maybe we'll see a ton of ownership there. Looks like Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to be quite popular again. Cooper Kupp might be popular, but it'd be tough for me with Stafford to eat Cooper Kupp chalk. Where are you at on some of these other games?
Yeah, I assume the second most popular, actually, I'd bet almost anything. The second most popular game is Fields and the Bears versus Detroit. Two bad defenses, one truly horrific defense in Detroit. Fields coming off of a game where he throws for 3, scores 1 on the ground, sets the rushing record for a quarterback, also set the first down record for a quarterback. And that, that doesn't matter for fantasy, but it does help so much for the offense to just any play, 3rd and 15, and you can just get the biggest bailout possible. Like, those are they show up if you play in an EPA per play league, which I don't know if those exist. He crushed even harder. But that is also useful for real life in that it keeps drives going when you're just racking up first downs. So I think that'll be popular. I find I struggle more to get on board with how to attack that game uniquely, because the Fields has 2 pass catchers I could even muster up caring a little bit about. those guys are the obvious ones. It's Cole Kmet, which I probably wouldn't even play, and more so Darnell Mooney, who does just rack up the air yards for this team. Other side, it's just Amon-Ra for me. So I don't really see how you get unique if you're stacking this game. I honestly, like, as far as leverage goes, I'd rather play like David Montgomery and just hope they run the ball a ton, which they do. It just also comes with Fields. So that game will be popular.
I don't know that you need to get leverage on this game. I think this game can fail.
Okay, I'm down for that. I hope it does, because I'm not playing it.
I think it can definitely fail. The Bears are a massive run funnel. The Lions are a run-first team. The Bears have been a very, very run-first team. They've still been run-heavy. They've been actually like crazy run-heavy over the last few weeks, just like they were to start the season. The difference is that Fields has been hyper efficient on the ground. He's obviously very talented. He could do that again against a very bad run defense, a very bad defense overall. So I get the excitement here, but I also think this game could kind of flop because both teams are generally conservative on offense, and they're not necessarily going to push each other. They certainly could push each other, but that doesn't have to happen. So I think there's scenarios where it's just like, Jamal Williams gets in the end zone once, DeAndre Swift gets in the end zone maybe another time, or it goes to one of the tight ends or whatever. Like they literally had a touchdown to two different backup tight ends last week, and it wasn't the chalky one. So there's certainly ways the Lions can still put up some points, but not ultimately be where you want it to be for DFS.
Yeah, I'm totally on board for just playing it, fading it in that manner too. I wonder if Trevor Lawrence will be popular. I mean, to the extent that like Mahomes will be extremely popular and Fields will be extremely popular, you could maybe just choose to attack it from like a Lawrence, Kirk, and Jones way. All of them are relatively cheap relative to like paying the super premium for a Mahomes Kelsey type of stack. After that, this is one last game I have a little bit of interest in, given that I don't know exactly what's going on with Buffalo. If I think we have a chance to get a Josh Allen ownership discount, I'm obviously windmilling it. If the the UCL injury or whatever is the downfall of that lineup, that's a risk I'm 100% willing to take. But it is the Colts Raiders game, especially with, you talked about this game as a potential like ugly shootout, in that the Raiders defense somehow overtook the Lions, who are terrible in EPA per drop back allowed. I was shocked by that when you said that, and I double checked. It is indeed correct.
Yep.
And Ellinger is having one of the highest scramble rates on terms of a per drop back basis. So when he's throwing, he at least gets to face a bad defense. He's not particularly good, but he gets to face terrible defense. And when he is not throwing on a drop back, it's because he's running the ball. So I think going that with like probably Pierce, because Pittman's still a little expensive for how I think this game will be mediocre, maybe fun mediocre, but in general, then you can just run it back with Devontae, who's going to get 107 targets this game. They have no one else to throw to. You could also run it back with Matt Collins, who's decent.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to get back on the Alec Pierce train for a couple weeks now. I think he's good, but he's not running all the routes, so it is tough. Yeah.
We got to check their tight ends too, because they had both Wiley Cox and Jelani Woods out of practice on Wednesday. I didn't check yesterday, but like there could be some good value options in Ellinger, just super cheap, tight ends super cheap, Alec Pierce cheap, Matt Collins cheap. Like this could be a game where you get to load up. Maybe you do Zay Jones, Travis Etienne, and Juju and Kelsey, and then you get a bunch of value from this game hitting 48 points or whatever. Like hits I assume that's the Leoder's like 46, 45 maybe.
Well, you also have Foster Moreau in this game, which it seems like maybe Greg Dulcich will be super chalky potentially.
I think so.
You know that I love Greg Dulcich, but rookie tight end chalk in a horrible game environment. We'll get to tight end later, but I think we can safely say neither one of us is going to be. If I'm not on the Dulcich chalk train, I assume you're not.
I mean, I think it will be lineup dependent. I will probably have less from the field, but if I play an Ellinger, Pierce, Devontae stack, at that point, I'd be fine eating some Dulcich chalk. That's just gonna be such a unique way to start that I will want to start piling up just points on my roster. But for the most part, if I play a
correlate Mahomes stack, get Moreau in there, correlate it.
If I play a Mahomes stack, you're probably not finding Dulcich in there.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. You're already going to the chalky game, don't go to the chalky tight end. Any other? I mean, we are not as off the board as you can get now that we talked about stacking up Sam Ellinger. So I don't know that there's too much more off the board we can get. But anything else jumps out at wide receiver, quarterback, maybe some mini correlations at wide receiver, anything there?
Okay, so if we're talking about wide receiver, this is another game that like in the median Vegas projection, both the Indy and this game, New Orleans, Pittsburgh, have totals of 40.5, pretty low. And there are actually some decent spots on this slate, but the defenses are bad and the values are valuable. George Pickens potentially picking up more work, sans Chase Claypool. They've already talked about trying to get him the ball more. Not sure how much that matters because he's still on the field all the time. But I do think taking away one less viable target, Chase Claypool, I assume, will be replaced in the lineup by Steven Sims. Like, not having to compete with Chase Claypool versus Steven Sims, I assume that's who's in it. That's who was in it a few weeks ago. That has to be good. Yeah, that has to be good for George Pickens' ability to draw targets, even if they can't literally get him on the field much more than he already was. But on the other side, I think Kamara will be pretty popular. Olave should be priced at like 8K on DraftKings. He should absolutely dominating targets. He's like a 40% plus air yard share, and I think 26% target share with Andy Dalton. It was the same way under Jameis. This is a terrible Pittsburgh defense, ranks 27th in EPA per dropback. Like, I like at least Olave just as a one-off. He just looks like a great play and is, I don't think, going to be that popular. Like, I think he should be chalked. He's such a good play this week at 6,800. And you could correlate it with maybe, I'd go Pickens. I just struggle to stomach Deontay so much.
What about Freiermuth?
You could do that too. I'm totally on board with that.
I kind of like that because he's not going to be, I mean, he's a little bit more expensive, but his role is really good. I think you talk about the type of targets that are going to open up, slot targets, over the middle targets. That's going to help out Pat Freiermuth the most of everybody there. So that's kind of a fun mini. I think maybe I'll run that because I completely agree with you about Olave. I mean, and I was not really into Olave as a prospect. I thought, he'd be good, but not like necessarily the highest ceiling type of guy. I was wrong about that. He's got a downfield role, a high volume downfield role. High volume downfield role is about as valuable as you can get.
I know.
In fantasy. You're
there
drawing
are like
targets
4 players a year who can do that, who can consistently get targeted like 12 yards downfield. Like, that is such a good
He's like at 14, 15. I mean, he's
baby.
It's like Julio.
I'm playing so much Olave this week. I'm so excited.
Yeah, but obviously very different, like physically than Julio. But to be able to your team's primary deep threat and to be a target dominant receiver in that role is just, it's crazy valuable. So yeah, that's a fun one. All right, let's get to some start sits though. I'll go to the top of the list here. All right, now as a reminder, we are not answering, I already made this trade, was it good? We don't do that. You only have to put the question in here once. Should have said this all at the top, but put the question in here once. We'll get to all of them. And yeah, let's start firing through. Should I trade Swift and DK Metcalf for Ramondre Stevenson? This would have looked very odd in August, wouldn't it, Kyle?
Yeah, I don't think so. I still think down the line, like DK Metcalf for Ramondre, I would take Ramondre, but it is not like an absurd thing to think. Yeah, it's close, right? I think you take Ramondre. I feel confident in saying that, but it's like saying, I'm confident in, if we redrafted right now, Ramondre would be like the 1-2 turn and Metcalf would be at the end of the second or the 2-3 turn, something like that. I know one of those is more valuable than the other, but the potential for Swift, and you're not playing him this week I don't think you would at least play him this week unless you have really bad running backs, but the potential for Swift to eventually get to 15 touches per game and what he can do with that, like, you want to be banking that, especially for the playoffs. So Metcalf and Ramondre are close enough that you have such a good home run swing to, I guess in this case, I think you're holding on to Swift.
That's where I'm at. Mike Evans or Jonathan Taylor?
I think it's Mike Evans. I don't know.
I think Taylor.
Mike Evans his role has been incredible since Chris Godwin returned. He's doing Olave. He's got 40% of the air yards and over 20% of the targets. He's also getting red zone looks. And I mean, if we're talking about that role for Olave, I know the Bucs defense Bucs offense has also not been that good, but they're at least playing in the fun, pass a ton way, even if it hasn't really resulted.
They are still passing a lot. That one's tough. Part of me wants to say Taylor because you're looking at a team that could be more efficient overall, as you described before. And although the line stinks, they're still not going to block well. We're worried about Taylor's health. I do think that, just having a somewhat competent offense. We also might not have Deion Jackson in this game, so maybe Taylor gets more of the dump off stuff. Maybe there's not a ton of that because Ellinger, that's not really his game, but I think I still lean Taylor.
I get it. I'm not that confident what I'm saying.
Yeah. the Buccaneers Seahawks game, I don't love, to be honest. I think I don't know. I'm a little bit worried about Brady in that game.
I'm worried about Brady every week, man.
Yeah. All right, let's go to pick 2. Olave, Kirk, McLaurin. Olave and Kirk.
Yeah, I don't hate McLaurin. He's doing, actually, he's one of the other players who, whenever the circumstances are right, it wasn't so much correct with Carson Wentz under center, but it has been the case with Taylor Heineke. He just throws it up to him every week. He's got like 50% air yard share with Heineke under center, but the Kirk game does look great. So I'll agree with you, Olave and Kirk.
I don't know if this happened for the audience, but you're kind of crackling there, Kyle.
Oh, sorry. I'll see if I can fix that.
All right, let's go. I have Olave, Amari Cooper, and Amon-Ra still. I think that was that's Sam D talking about the trade. Mike Evans or Jonathan Taylor, we got that. Trade Diggs for Pierce and Lockett. I would not do this. I would not trade away Stephon Diggs for Dameon Pierce and Tyler Lockett.
Agreed.
Okay. Should I trade away Keenan Allen and Deontay Johnson to get Alvin Kamara?
100%.
Yes.
1,000,000%. So easy.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I need a backup quarterback. Any suggestions? You got to give some options. There's a multiple choice type of show here. Start Singletary or Mecole Hardman. Mecole Hardman might not go. So I think it's Singletary there.
Agreed.
I actually think this might be a good week for Singletary. They might have to lean on him a bit. Broncos, Saints, or Cardinals defense?
Who do these teams
You got to tell us who they're playing. That's another rule. Kyle, somehow you've gotten worse. Maybe switch your mic. Let's see. Broncos play. Why can't I do this when it's the other way? Saints we just talked about, so I should know who they play, but yeah, it's not coming to mind. I think maybe I'd go the Broncos just because they're an elite defense. 2, you have a very good chance of sacks, whether you have an immobile Ryan Tannehill or Malik Willis. So I'll say Broncos. Cousins versus Jimmy G. I think maybe this is a Jimmy G week. We got Jimmy G playing a Chargers defense that's not good at defending anything. So I think you're going to have the 49ers moving the chains a lot, very efficient, balanced offense. Kind of like how, like when the Seahawks are rolling, it's because the run game and the pass game are both working. So I think it's actually a pretty good week to stream Jimmy G. Twos, half PPR. 2 questions, I see. 2 questions. Half PPR flex. Mostert, Rachaad White, Kareem Hunt, Brandon Ayuk, George Pickens. So we need to flex one of these guys. You back, Kyle?
I hope so. How do I sound? How do I look?
You are. I'm telling you what, the solo portion of the show is not going to go very well if you sound like this. All right, so flexing Mostert, no. Rachaad White, don't love it. I think I might go Ayuk. Assuming it's a boom bust, but all these guys are, I think, fairly low ceiling. So I probably would go for a guy I think actually does have a ceiling in Ayuk. PPR flex, different question. Antonio Gibson, Khalil Herbert, Rachaad White, Deontay Johnson. I think I'm going Johnson there. Deontay Johnson, just pray for the regression. Pray for the regression. My buddies Peter Rosette and Ben Gretcher are getting on me for being a Pickett doubter. They think Pickett has just been the victim of a bad schedule. So maybe that's true. I think he stinks. But hey, I think it's enough to start Deontay.
I'm so lost now because
Kyle, now you're just muted. No.
Someone in chat. I scrolled to the end because I'm like, sure, people are making fun of me for this. You're
okay.
fine. Well,
can you pick 2? Wan'Dale, Christian Watson. You only gave me 2 there, guy. So I don't. Okay, here we go. Here's the rest. Wan'Dale, Christian Watson, Tony, and DeAndre Carter need 2 for the flex. You need 2 of these guys, huh? You need 2 of them. I think DeAndre Carter, he'll be out there. Tony won't be out there.
I assume you can't hear me, but everyone
Christian
says
Watson?
they can hear me.
I think maybe Wan'Dale. I'm kind of thinking Wan'Dale's not maybe that great.
My own
He's got
show.
4.5 ADOT, but Yeah, I'd probably go Wan'Dale over Watson. I'm just not sure what Watson's role going to be. Kyle's laughing. Kyle, can you hear me? Can I hear you? I hear both.
I assume his AirPods died. I don't know. Like
maybe it's me.
It clearly is you. It's not me.
I can't hear Kyle at all.
Just BSing about not hearing. He said like I was like I choose this player or whatever. He was like I can't hear him. Kick him off the show. I mean, it's got to be like an AirPod issue. He said I was crackling. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I was trying to fix so much stuff. I don't know where we left off. So if I like jump too far ahead and skip your question, I apologize. Let me see what we got here. I'm just gonna scroll and pick a random point because I don't know where he left off. Would I trade Kenneth Walker for DeAndre Hopkins? That's a tough one. It's like both top 5 running back, top 5 receiver rest of season. I think I would take DeAndre Hopkins, assuming it is. I mean, I see you dancing. Can you hear me?
I can hear
you. There
we
go.
This guy said guy in blue hit you. You're right. I guess it was me, but it was you first.
It could have been. Yeah. I know. Like every once in a while, my internet's a little sus. So.
All right.
You. Pick up where you left off.
Were we just talking over each other? I must have been insane to watch.
Well, I was doing bits. I admit, once chat told me that it was on you. I started talking over you, but I hope for comedic effect. But before that, as soon as you said I crackled, I reset some stuff. And then once I came back in, I started making jokes because I could tell what was going on.
All right. Well, let's get back to it. Now that we can hear each other, half point PPR, pick one: Mooney, Palmer, or Judy.
Palmer.
I think I'm Judy.
Oh, Judy. Okay. That's fine.
I mean, he's just better.
That's probably true.
Environment. Yeah. All right. Pick 2: Jeff Wilson, Miles Sanders, Khalil Herbert, Gabe Davis.
Sanders, Gabers, but I guess I'd need to wait and see what the Josh Allen situation is. He's supposed to return to practice today. I mean, Herbert was like once again sort of phased back out of the offense. It's gonna be such a touch and go thing with him. Jeff Wilson, you can make an argument for that.
Jeff Wilson would be one of the guys. I mean, I would be playing him over Gabe if we get Keenum, I think.
Agree. I'll agree with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm with you on Gabe if we get Allen. And I think Gabe you could maybe play with Keenum. I don't think it'd be crazy. Olave, Lazard, or Connor in the flex. Olave. Dude, you're right. If this question's here, Olave's not going to be played.
Like we need to have like Olave versus DeAndre Hopkins, Olave versus Amon-Ra type of questions. Like the tier 2
Olave versus Amon-Ra is a good one.
Yeah, those types of questions are appropriate.
Dak or Geno?
Geno, yeah. Oh, someone said Chow again. Chow was one of the first people on the scene informing me that I could be heard. Said Allen was not practicing today, so we got to be getting Keenum then. Sorry,
full PPR 2 out of George Pickens, Gabe Davis, Jeff Wilson, Miles Sanders, Khalil Herbert.
George Pickens, Gabe. Wait, didn't we?
We just did this one, but they did it reverse.
I think they revised and said pick. I don't know. Maybe they said full PPR. Sorry, but now that I've
I think
it's the same thing. Jeff Wilson, Miles Sanders. That's the answer.
Yeah. Which tight end would you start in full PPR? Kittle, Njoku, or Dulcich?
It's still Kittle.
Njoku's out.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Yeah, he wasn't practicing early in the week, so I guess it shouldn't be much of a surprise, but good to know. Kittle, well, obviously not Njoku. It's not that far off, but I do just I want to be betting on how talented Kittle is, unless it's him versus no, I think I still have him ranked as my tight end 2 this week. So it's him or Kelsey. So
yeah, I think it's Kittle for me. Rest of season, he asked, how do you rank still those Kittle. Guys plus Hurst?
Oh, I'd take Dulcich second, though, given that I don't exactly know how healthy Njoku is, and Dulcich's role was great. So, has been great in the first 3 games back. So it's not like you're giving up much. You may not be giving up anything to go him over Njoku.
No, he's in a really, really sweet spot. He's also got a deep ADOT. He's able to challenge deep, which I think speaks to his talent.
If KJ Hamler is out this week, he's going to have the highest, at least in the past since he returned, he'll have the highest ADOT over the receivers. KJ Hamler is the only one who's, like he moves chains.
And that was his prospect profile, is that he's like a deep downfield big receiver. And it's kind of, when a guy hits like he's supposed to hit, that's actually one of the reasons Olave has really changed my opinion so much, because they were like, well, he'll be able to be a downfield receiver. He'll be good at that. And then he's like really good at that. So you're like, okay, I just didn't realize quite how good he was, but he's doing what he's supposed to do. Mooney or Claypool rest of season?
Mooney.
I think it's Claypool for me.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, Mooney's gotten a chance. He's stunk. And Claypool was targeted at an absurd rate per route. He wasn't out there a ton yet, but I think once he ramps up, it's going to be him as the number one option.
Okay, deal. I'll take your word for it, yeah.
Najee, Sutton, Godwin, Palmer. Standard scoring pick 2.
Oh, even in standard, Godwin. And
yes, agreed.
But does this mean standard really weights these running backs? Oh, makes me sick to my tummy.
Yeah, not Palmer. We can rule out Palmer. It's probably Sutton or Najee. I think standard. You go Najee.
Yeah, you still go Najee.
You made us say Najee. Is Dawson Knox a top 5 option with Keenum and a more balanced attack on the table this week?
No,
he's not.
No, I mean you're probably still starting him.
Answering some questions,
but no.
I'm not sure when this is from. I don't know if this was from when the DFS talk. It must have been. I was hoping it was from when we were just commenting about how we couldn't hear each other.
That would have been funny.
I need some help with my flex. Start Sutton, Najee, Jalen Warren, or Pickens. Now, here we go. Now, this is half PPR. I think at this point I would go Sutton.
Agreed.
All right. Yahoo projecting Darius Slayton, for only 2 PPR points. I've been touting Darius Slayton a little bit this week. I think Darius Slayton is the Giants' number 1 wide receiver at the moment. So I agree with you. I think that's a little silly. Do you have any love for Slayton? I can't get anyone interested in Slayton, which I understand why.
I like him.
But people are interested in Wan'Dale Robinson for no reason. So half point PPR.
Slayton's fine. I like him. That's all.
He's 4,600 on DraftKings, which is so annoying. Wait, so who do you think wins the bet that I made with Pete? Rest of season points, Wan'Dale or Slayton?
Slayton. Well, I assume you specified full PPR, right?
Yeah, it's PPR. Yeah.
I mean, he definitely has like outs to winning, but like it's gonna be through so many catches. Like that's the only way he can chase you down, because on 2 Slayton receptions, you need to equal that by like 6 from Wan'Dale. Maybe his role improves, but I don't see why it would now. So yeah, I wish Slayton was a little cheaper on DK's 4,600.
4,600 is just ridiculous.
They're gonna run the ball so many times this week.
They are. Saquon Barkley cover the walkthrough. Check it out on rotoworld.com. Half PPR. Thoughts on starting Gabe Davis if Josh Allen plays over Pickens and Sutton? I'm into
if he plays, I'd take him over.
It. Yeah. But I agree. I would not be playing Gabe if he does not play. If Stafford sits, I may sit Kupp. First of all, I don't feel like you should do that. But Cooper, Olave, Lazard, and James Conner, which 3 would you start? Which I guess those guys plus Kupp. So pick 3. So Olave, I would start over Kupp without Stafford.
I think so too.
But
then Kupp still comes in second for me. Kupp still comes in second.
Yeah.
After that, I don't.
Cooper's in a really good spot. Do you buy the Cooper stuff on the road?
No, not as much. Sure. I mean, I think that is probably generally true of most players in fantasy situations, that they are worse on the road because there is a measurable effect of home teams being favorites. Like I think it's down like to 2 or 2.5 points now. It used to be at least like a clean 3. I don't think his splits should be almost any more drastic than any other player, though.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I think I'd go Cooper and just fade the road stuff. I don't think it'd be crazy to play James Conner over Cooper Kupp.
Conner came back to a good role last week. It's good.
Yeah, I don't think that's crazy. So if you really feel uncomfortable, then I would go Lazard. I do think it would be a mistake to play Lazard over Cooper Kupp.
Easily, yeah.
Sutton or Claypool? Playing Sutton this week, I think.
Yeah, Sutton.
All right. If Josh Allen sits, is Diggs a fade, or would you play him? You're not fading Diggs.
I think like 6. I mean, I know he's probably still played more career games without Josh Allen, but I think like 5 of the 6 best games in Diggs' career have somehow come with all non-Allen quarterbacks in terms of just raw yards. Like one's Case Keenum, some in Kirk Cousins. Like that's the thing about being incredible at football is that maybe it doesn't make you entirely quarterback proof, but damn near.
Yeah. I mean, this guy's succeeded. He's literally a playoff legend with Case Keenum. So don't worry about Case Keenum with Diggs. All right, let's answer a couple trade questions here, and then we'll go back to the DFS talk for another 10 minutes. I was able to pick up Fields off waiver wire, and I now have an opportunity to trade Burrow for a wide receiver too. Should I do it?
Yep.
Honestly, I might be shopping Fields. Fields is the guy.
Fair.
I think maybe you can get more for Fields at this point. And so I'm a little bit. I feel like he's gonna. There's some negative regression coming for Fields because so much of it is rushing efficiency for him. That's how I play it.
Also, I'm fine with that. I tried to answer this one while we were disconnected there for a second, and I really struggled. This is a tough question.
I want Hopkins.
I think I said that too, but
yeah,
it's close.
All right, let's talk some more DFS. Let's talk running backs here, Kyle. It's been quite the year for running backs. Running back chalk hitting. Even last week when some of the chalkiest chalk didn't hit, it was other chalk that did hit and that you needed. Dameon Pierce is going to be super chalky this week. Alvin Kamara will be very popular. Josh Jacobs. One guy that I am very, very interested in is Saquon Barkley. He's 8,600 on DraftKings. He will not be unowned, but it doesn't look like maybe he'll be among the most popular options. The issue with playing him is then you got to figure out what else to do because you can't. Are you going to the Chiefs game? Maybe you go from the Jaguars side, but I think it's a lot less fun to play that from Trevor Lawrence rather than Patrick Mahomes. So Travis Etienne kind of priced up as well to 7,100, which should keep his ownership down a little bit, but he'll obviously get pulled along some by that game. So what are your thoughts? I guess it's also kind of a macro thing at running backs. So we don't have like very much salary savings. All the popular options and most popular options are kind of in the 7,000 plus range, except Pierce, who's at 6,300, which is probably why everyone's gravitating to him.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be playing much Dameon Pierce this week. They're expensive, and I hate playing expensive defense, but the good side is DFS has evolved so much that almost any expensive defense just doesn't get a lot of ownership unless they're in the GOAT matchup, which I guess playing Davis Mills kind of is. But because Pierce is a popular cash game level play, Giants defense plus Saquon Barkley. I mean, we have seen Houston has one of the worst run defenses in the league, and their opponents have on the year had one of the highest run rates over expected, lowest pass rate over expected. Unsurprising. They lose most of their games. They have a bad run defense. 1+1. It's not that hard. And we know that the Giants, given the opportunity, would love to give Saquon Barkley 30 touches. So not only would I love to play Saquon Barkley this week, I think I just full fade like Dameon Pierce. I get that he's like the one really good cheap option, but when you look at like his box scores are so unsurprising in that 27 for 139, great game. Love to see it. 16.9 points because he got the 3-point 100-yard bonus. Doesn't catch a single pass. He's not a great pass catcher. He's gotten some decent run in the pass catching game, but he's not much of a threat to score or break a long reception. So you're only worried about the PPR value it adds. No rushing touchdowns in the past 3 games. Playing for the Davis Mills-led Texans is just such a hindrance on his ability to put up a monster game. He has one game over 20.3 fantasy points. So obviously, he is a good median projection, but I don't love what are they like road dogs of 5 points, low team total, not an elite pass catcher. You can play him in cash, but I probably won't have a single Pierce lineup in tournaments.
I'm with you. I think the ceiling, to your point, I'm not sure the ceiling's going to bury me, so it definitely is going to make making lineups harder to not use Pierce. But if everyone else is going there, I want him to be as chalky as possible, because I think he's actually pretty strong fade. I don't know that we're getting like the Josh Jacobs 30+ point type of outing from him. Is there any? Okay, so if we're not playing Pierce, are there cheaper guys to go to that make things work, or we're having to punt at wide receiver? Like, how are we making this all work?
Yeah, I'll give you a few. Dave Montgomery, 70% of snaps last week, consistently runs like twice as many routes as Khalil Herbert. Lions have a bad run defense, and he's leverage off of Justin Fields. If you can just steal away like 2 rushing touchdowns, he's not my favorite play. He's still probably in a committee. Last week it was definitely not a committee. You would just call it. He was clearly the workhorse back, essentially. That's been such an ebb and flow thing. James Conner, we talked about, but role was strong, 71% of snaps, ran a route on, I think, 60 or so, 65% of dropbacks. Not elite, but pretty solid usage for a guy who's in the same price range, basically playing the same role as Dameon Pierce. And it's not like he has an offensive disadvantage. Like, it's a difficult matchup, but at least his offense is it's better than the Texans. It's not carried away. And you seem to at least like Devin Singletary, especially if we don't get, Josh Allen. We probably should see as someone pointed out, a more balanced approach. I don't think they'll be run heavy by any means, but he's been dominating their backfield carries. I'm not sure with the trade of Hines that he does that with targets much anymore, but that's not really what we're gunning for in this game. And he's pretty cheap too. He's 5,600. So he's a good chunk, less expensive than Pierce. So if you're paying down, that's probably where I'd look. Any love for Jamal Williams?
Who's the second guy you said?
James Conner.
James Conner. Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah.
I love that one. And that's kind of a direct pivot off of Pierce 6,200. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why isn't he not going to be popular? He's back. He had 2% less snaps than Benjamin did 2 weeks ago. Like, in other words, he was a workhorse.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Dameon Pierce is really good, and James Conner, I'm not sure this guy is that good. He was just so dreadfully inefficient early in the year, and we've only seen him he's got the good role, and his offense is better. And that's why I'm going to him. I'm trying to explain the mind of the fantasy player. Right. He's got the good role. He's got a better offense, but bad matchup versus Rams. And Pierce, and this is not just like the normie fantasy brain. Pierce literally is better at football. I don't have any doubt about that.
Yeah, of course he is. Yeah.
But playing on the Texans,
I mean,
it's so bad.
Kyler's like nursing a hammy. They're playing John Walford. They win the field position battle, and he catches a couple dump off short touchdown passes from Kyler, who's not quite as mobile. I mean, that's enough. Like, you get a couple touchdowns out of Conner, which I think is highly plausible in a game that the Cardinals could be winning, even if it's gross, at very, very low ownership. I love that one. I think I'll definitely have him. I wish there was something cheap. Like, I don't know, Jeff Wilson probably doesn't have the ceiling, and he's also not cheap enough to really, like, 5,500. It just feels like if you're making the Dameon Pierce doesn't have a ceiling argument, and then you play Jeff Wilson, that feels a little hypocritical. Najee Harris at 5,500. Any interest there?
Dude, I think about this like once every few weeks about like the same with Zeke. There was a week where he's really cheap and projected well on FanDuel. I think it was when they played the Lions. Like, I do think if he comes in, and he will come in just completely unpopular, like 2% or 3%.
Yeah.
There's probably an edge in playing him, but it would have to be on my 50th or 60th lineup, and I'm not making that many.
I know. I make like 3 or 4 lineups, and he will not be in them. All right, let's talk tight end real quick. We mentioned Dulcich earlier is going to be massive chalk. I don't think that's great chalk, especially because there are some other cheap tight ends. Evan Ingram looks like he'll be popular. I don't love that, given that he's nursing this back injury. Foster Moreau is pretty interesting to me, is another punt pivot. I mentioned Pat Freiermuth. I like him a lot, especially as that mini correlation with Olave is actually pretty nice. Kelsey will be definitely someone I would like to get to, given that this matchup's awesome. I think the Jaguars defense is totally fraudulent, and they don't rate well. I think they're like potentially like the Raiders, or like in a few weeks we'll be like, oh, the Jaguars are actually like as bad as anybody at defending the pass. So I think playing that from the Chiefs side, playing from the Kelsey side is really, really enticing. I'm not sure I'll be able to make it work, but I'm definitely going to try. Anything else jump out at tight end?
I am interested. We talked about it earlier, TJ Hawkinson. Like, I think there's a very real possibility. It's a difficult matchup. And it's a difficult matchup in a game that should not be, it should be a low scoring back and forth game, as far as assuming Josh Allen isn't playing. So maybe this isn't the week to capitalize on it, but he played 91% of snaps, saw 9 targets, caught all 9 of them. And Adam Thielen he just doesn't have it anymore. So it could be that TJ Hawkinson, who's playing well, he was top 10 in yards after the catch, per catch. Yep. He was top 10 in yards per route run with the Lions. Now he gets a better offensive scheme, a better passing attack. Like, he could just be a number 2 receiver for this team with Adam Thielen Thielen's playing closer to Johnny Munt than he has TJ Hawkinson. So in terms of like his efficiency, he's been dreadful.
That's mean. Chris call him Irv Smith. He'll say he's Irv Smith.
Deal. I'll call him. He's been playing like Irv Smith.
Yeah, he's been playing like Irv Smith.
He should assume the Irv Smith role of like pops up every now and then for 4 or 5 target games. And TJ Hawkinson should assume the Adam Thielen type of role. And maybe that's what we're seeing. We possibly saw it last week. Yeah, exactly. He could just be a receiver, at least in terms of his volume. I'm not sure this is a week to capitalize on that, but I don't know. I'd rather be a week early than a week late, I guess.
Me too. All right, Kyle, I got to run, but we're going to be Kyle, the royal we, meaning Kyle Dvorchak, will be answering your questions for another few minutes here or so. Thank you, guys. See you next week.
All right, I will rip through some of these. I'm reading back he's not here. I'm just gonna reminisce on the good times. I can hear both you and everyone. I'm glad, guys. I will say, as funny as it was, I am very glad everyone came in to inform me of this, because I was panicking. I was like, oh my God, I'm messing up my internet, yada, yada. And I am glad we have a feedback loop of you guys helping us. You're all producers, in a sense, running this show. Let's get to it. George Pickens or Treylon Burks? George Pickens. I just have zero faith in either the Malik Willis or the Ryan Tannehill incarnation of the Titans offense being able to throw the ball. Burks was playing a limited role and was efficient early in the year, but as he got ramped up into a larger role, his efficiency dipped. They're not good at passing. He's not a player who is so talented right off the bat in the same way like Olave, or in the different way that Olave is, that he's going to dominate in a bad situation. Pickens has some potential, maybe without Chase Claypool. At least he's in roughly as bad of a passing situation by efficiency, I would imagine, but the volume, at least for Steelers, should be there. So I'd go Pickens rest of season. Who do I play, Thielen or Warren? Lazard is my other flex. Give me Thielen, Dillon, or Warren. Excuse me. Give me Dillon, I think. Yeah, give me Dillon. What else we got here? Khalil Herbert or Rondale Moore in the flex, half PPR. Rondale Moore, Khalil Herbert. And I know this like ebbs and flows every week, but last week was down to a snap share of below 30%. I think he saw just 7 carries. So it's done. Did D'Onta Foreman improve to you all these this week? And it's less. I was on D'Onta Foreman. Was it last night already? Yeah, last night, because he's been, 2 weeks ago when the offense was terrible, he also didn't do much. But in his games before that, he's been truly like a good long run tackle breaking type of player. And Chuba Hubbard just doesn't. He's just not proved he can do really much of anything. So Foreman might catch 0 passes in most games, but when he's out there running the football in games where they can at least not lose by like 10 plus, he'll get like 20 carries. So yeah, I actually really like Foreman rest of season, just as far as a guy who can be efficient on 15 carries almost as a floor. When they get blown out, it'll be less, but it'll happen. Olave's role is just absolutely stunning. What in the world do you do with Pitts and Dynasty as a win now team? The market is still there. It feels like if he pans out exactly. Yeah. It depends. Like, I actually do think that like win now teams, I don't play in a ton of Dynasty leagues, maybe like 5 to 6. So my sample size isn't great, but I do think the win now teams, like overpaying for a win now player, generally do overpay, which is why I said that. Because in an individual playoff game sample, playoff fantasy sample, the impact of one supposedly high impact player is just so noisy. Like any player like DeAndre Hopkins can just go out and go, 6 for 70 and no touchdowns, and you lose that matchup and you gave away Pitts to get him or whatever like that. So fantasy football is so random that I don't like trying to buy short-term wins, because I think it's kind of a losing effort in the long run. So let's see. Oh, is TJ Watt back this week? Steelers D versus Saints. It's better, obviously. So, I still think I like our little mini correlation we came up with, but didn't know he's back this week. Please help flex one. Singletary, Mooney, Herbert, Jeff Wilson, Palmer. I'll go Singletary. Pierce, Singletary, Wilson, or White. Still Dameon Pierce. We're a little down on Dameon Pierce from a DFS perspective. Not all the way down. Certainly not all the way down. Zay Jones or Michael Gallup. Give me Zay. Should I still chase points with Trevor? It took me a second to realize what you meant, but he does have at least the Fabio hair. He's not quite built like Fabio, though. Even if Josh Allen plays this week. Oh, if Josh Allen plays, we're playing Josh Allen. There is nothing, if he is active and they don't tell us he's an emergency quarterback, there is, unless you somehow had Patrick Mahomes on your team, there is no one I would start over him. Or I guess Jalen Hurts, but two players I'd start over him. Are the Cardinals DST a good start? Let me see how expensive they are. I have them pulled up. I mean, they'll get steamed playing John Wolford. They'll probably flip to favorites if they aren't already. Yeah, I mean, they get steamed. It's 2,700 versus John Wolford. Maybe not, though. Maybe if we don't get Stafford ruled out till late. I haven't checked if he's been ruled out yet. They're on the West Coast. They might practice a little later, too. So, I mean, if we get it with any reasonable amount of time, if it isn't an hour and a half before lock, and I guess they're the later game of the day, I assume. They're a 4 o'clock window. But as long as it happens between now and noon on Sunday, they'll get steamed. Who'd you flex, Jalen Warren or Rachaad White? Also, if possible, trade Rachaad and OBJ for Jeff Wilson. It's a good question. I would go with Rachaad White still. Yeah, still Rachaad White. Possible trade Rachaad and OBJ for Jeff Wilson. I think I'd hold on to Rachaad and OBJ. Pickens or Tony? I'll go Tony here. I went Pickens earlier. I will go Tony here. Let's see. Sorry, just chat's funny. I'm reading chat. Half PPR, pick 2, Jonathan Taylor, Tony Pollard, or Debo. Get Pollard out of here. They hate that guy's guts, which is just the most infuriating stuff of grinds my little gears. AJ Dillon, Brandon Cooks, or Nico Collins. Brandon Cooks, assuming he's back. I think he's back though. What else we got? Gus Edwards healthy next week? I would imagine so. I would think so, but I would be so concerned with how, I don't want to say poorly they have handled their injury situations, how poorly their injury situations have gone with J.K. Dobbins, Rashad Bateman. Those ones specifically were re-injuries or like re-aggravations. I don't think Mark Andrews, maybe his was too. I don't know. It wouldn't make no sense to not ease him back in with 10 carries. Maybe they still do. Buy low on Keenan and Mike. I'm not buying low on Keenan. Like, he seems like a guy who could just keep not playing for a while. Mike Williams, if you can get him cheap, sure. And especially because he will come back to an offense that I'm just not sure what we have left in the tank for Keenan. The fact that he immediately re-injures the knee in practice in like week 4, doesn't come back, says he got more injured after or during the bye. What is this? Like, I'm not buying him. Which 2 wide receivers would you start? Let's see. It's snowing in Buffalo too, apparently. Pickens, Sutton, Gabe. If Allen starts, it's Gabe and Sutton. If he doesn't, it's Pickens and Sutton. Let's see what we got here. Start 2, McLaurin, Pittman, Gabers, or Jeff Wilson. Give me McLaurin and Pittman, Kirk or Jimmy G. Who do the 49ers play? Are they on the main slate? Because if they don't, I won't remember. Let's see. I got them here. They play the Chargers. Man, I don't want to play. I think I go Jimmy. Buffalo defense is a terrifying matchup, and the game is just going to be miserable if Josh Allen doesn't play. Jimmy. I can't. Godwin or Pierce, PPR. Godwin. Should I still pick up Gus Edwards' stash? My other running backs are Jacobs, Ken Walker, and Foreman. Only if that back end of the roster guy that you're cutting for Edwards, only if he is not going to factor into your long-term plans or whatever. Because you're set. You're starting these 3 running backs every single week. Maybe Foreman gets into a split eventually and you're not starting him, but Gus Edwards will probably be splitting his work as well. So he's a fine stash. He's certainly worth rostering in all leagues, but I don't know if your team is the team within the league that should be. If you have someone on the back end like Zay Jones or whatever, and you want the extra running back, go for it. Is Brian Robinson droppable over Gus Edwards or Algier? I'd take Gus Edwards over Brian Robinson. Robinson, it's just not been efficient. The offense is bad. At least Gus, I don't think will have a strong role, but he'll be efficient. So you can at least hang your hat on that whenever he comes back. Godwin or Lazard. Let's go Godwin. PPR start 2. Najee, Montgomery, Antonio Gibson, or Tony Pollard. Dave Montgomery won for sure. I've talked him up a little bit on the show. think it's Najee. You could convince me of Pollard, but I would go Najee. Is Jarvis Landry a sneaky play this week if healthy, or is he just dusty, older, and injured in middling passing offense? Sorry, this got me. He probably is dusty, older, and injured. And I think he's maybe not the dustiest. He actually, he started the year with at least that strong 100-yard performance in like the week 1 or 2, tailed off after that, but coming back off the injury, and more importantly, entering a situation in which Chris Olave is just dominating the targets in the air yards, I wouldn't trust it. I trade Kamara and Pittman. I get Cook and Lockett, Dalvin Cook and Lockett. I don't trust Colts running backs. Running backs seem like a wash. What say you all? I don't think it's a wash to go Kamara and Cook. I assume you're talking about Dalvin Cook. I don't think that's a wash. Kamara, since week 5, when he returned and has been healthy since, is the number 2 running back in terms of expected fantasy points. He has an elite 23 or 4% target share with Andy Dalton under center. I think he's a top 3 running back, and Cook is like a top 10 running back. Cook, I think, is 12th on the dot in expected fantasy points. I expect him to outperform that because he is a talented player, but not by a ton, not to get to top 5. So I don't think that's a wash. So I think because of that, you take the Kamara and Pittman side still. What else we got? I wouldn't be so down on Cousins in that game. Long scoring. Bills defense. That's true. Bills defense. Yeah, I don't know. This is a tough one. And we know the 49ers, they're big favorites. I believe they're 7-point favorites against the Chargers, who have a terrible run defense. That's a tough one. I went Jimmy. Maybe the right answer is Kirk. I don't know. At Pat on Twitter and ask him. I still think I go Jimmy. But man, they could throw 12 times. That's all I've got for you. Best use of the bench spot. I think interesting. 12-team half PPR. I think Odell. Wide receivers are Godwin, Deontay, and Curtis Samuel. I don't think you're starting Wandale over Curtis Samuel, and you're not starting him over Deontay, at which point he's not contributing much to your roster. So yeah, I'll go OBJ here. Who to drop, Keenan and DJ Moore, or both? I would drop Keenan for Deontay. Sutton, Khalil Herbert, or Jalen Warren. Let's go Sutton. Pick 2 wide receivers, Devonta, George Pickens, or Curtis Samuel. Devonta and Pickens. Dulcich or Freiermuth. Rankings say Freiermuth, but upside says Dulcich. I will go with, I don't know if you're talking about my rankings. I did them earlier in the week. And I got to say, I don't remember who I ranked higher. I think I ranked Dulcich higher. Let me see. Because I'd take Dulcich. His role as like a field stretcher too is just so good. If I ranked him higher, I'll go back and switch him. Let's see. Okay. I will end. Let me get 2 quick ones. Cooper or Goddard this week. Cooper, what can we expect from Dobbins and Elijah Mitchell? Elijah Mitchell, I don't think will touch the ball. Like he'll get 4 carries a game. You don't trade as much as the 49ers did. Plus, assume, his contract, which isn't terrible this year, but unless they're like getting rid of him within a year, which they won't, is also a lot of money going forward. So I don't think he'll touch the ball at all. Dobbins will probably be in a committee, but I would just be so concerned that they don't use him as much as like his efficiency would tell you they should because of his injury history. The fact that he came back and almost immediately gets hurt. He was banged up within a few weeks, then is out. So let's see. Is Tennessee a viable? Is Tennessee a viable defense, or go with San Francisco? I'd go with San Francisco. All right, last one. Follow-up question on Kamara's hasn't come up in a while. Are we far enough into the season? Yeah, his thing isn't happening. If the NFL didn't do it already, they're not doing it. The court date was once again pushed back. The trial won't start, or at least isn't scheduled to start till March 1st or 13th or something. And they won't even reconvene in court until like the second weekend of January, or maybe the first weekend of January, or week, not weekend. Weekends are when they play football. So yeah, it's not happening 100%. All right. Let's see. Okay, there we go. If you want to trust them, I'm perfectly fine with that. I will personally have Dulcich higher if I don't already. If I don't have it, I'm going to change that. Thanks. All right, guys. That's all the questions. Thanks for tuning in. Check us out back here, same time next week. Have a good weekend. Good luck to everyone.